Hey everyone, this is Tucka, and I'm going to be playing The Elder Scrolls 3 Morrowind. And I'm going to be playing a fairly heavily modded version of Morrowind. So, I hope you guys enjoy this. This is my first Let's Play video, so excuse any awkward pauses and other little errors, and I hope the audio quality on this ends up being okay, but I think it'll work out fine. And I've chosen this game, Morrowind, because although I'm sure it's been played many times before on YouTube, I'm not breaking any new ground here. It is a great game, and I'm familiar with the game and the series, and it's a game I want to play, and I understand the lore pretty well, and I think I might be able to give some interesting insight, hopefully, into this game as I play. And so I'm going to be quiet here for a moment as the intro plays and you get this kind of background and prologue, and Azura speaks to our protagonist here in a dream.
They have taken you from the Imperial City's prison, first by carriage and now by boat. To the east, to Morrowind. Fear not, for I am watchful. You have been chosen.
Wake up. We're here. Why are you shaking? Are you okay? Wake up.
So we are coming to consciousness.
Stand up. There you go. You were dreaming.
I'm going to give my name here as Banrin Vetus, which is a fairly authentic Dunmer or Dark Elven name.
Well, not even last night's storm could wake you. I heard them say we've reached Morrowind. I'm sure they'll let us go.
So in the tradition of the Elder Scrolls game, you start off as a prisoner.
Quiet.
But we'll soon be released.
This is where you get off. Come with me.
And it's left fairly open-ended, not really explained or told. You're not really told what you're in prison for. Kind of lets you fill in the blank there and decide for yourself what your character was in prison for. Maybe he really is a criminal, or maybe he just got case of mistaken identity, or maybe some corrupt official. Who knows?
Up on deck and let's keep this as civil as possible.
Obviously the guard there not giving us too much respect, but I'm gonna go up on the top deck here, and the character creation process will continue.
This is where they want you. Head down to the dock and I'll show you.
This is kind of interesting. It's kind of an immersive character creation process. You first ask your name, you give your name, and then you talk to this guy. He asks you where you're from.
You finally arrived, but our records don't show.
And that gives you your racial information. So I'm going to be a Dark Elf, as I said. And there's a variety of options here, though. You can be the Argonian, which are the lizard people. I'm not really going to talk about all the different options. I'm just going to play a Dark Elf, which is a Dunmer in the native tongue. And Dark Elves, as we see, they're resistant to fire, so I'm not going to take as much damage from fiery attacks. And we have an Ancestor Guardian power, which lets us summon a ghost to fight for us, I think, once per day. And I'm going to fiddle with the options here. And I figure I'm going to play a Telvanni character. And if you don't know what a Telvanni is, or if you don't remember, they are one of the great houses of Morrowind. And you have an option in this game of which factions you want to join. There are like about a dozen or so total factions in the game. I'm probably not going to join most of them, because in my opinion, one of the things that makes these games fun, and what makes Morrowind particularly... Well, what's great about Morrowind is that there are so many factions, and they all have their own dynamics, and they all have their own agendas, and it doesn't really make sense to join them all, although you can join most of them, because they are really at odds, and they're intended for different types of characters. And so if you're going to play a mage type character, which I'll be playing, House Telvanni and the Mages Guild are two factions you can join, although in terms of the lore of the game, those two factions are really at odds and they're rivals. So I probably won't be joining the Mages Guild because I'm going to be a loyal Telvanni retainer. So that's what I'll be doing. And the Telvanni are actually kind of the odd men out on Morrowind. They're not very popular. They are not particularly fond of the Imperials, which I'll give you the background on the Imperials later and what they're doing here. But at the same time, they don't really have a lot of respect for old Dunmer traditions, and Dunmer tend to be fairly superstitious and religious, and that doesn't really fit the Telvanni, who are more enamored of the profane and dark arts than your typical Dunmer. So a lot of the factions I probably won't be joining, which is good because it gives me lets me focus in on one or two main quest lines, which I will be doing the main quest eventually. And that's another thing I like about Morrowind, is you're not really forced to start the main
Great.
quest.
I'm sure you'll fit right in. Follow me up to the office and they'll finish your release.
So yeah, I want to pause here so you don't miss anything with this intro sequence.
Head on in.
So this is the next stage of the character creation process. I'm going to talk to this guy, and
Yes, we've been expecting you.
this clerk, this Imperial clerk here, there's a few different ways,
There are a few ways we can do this, and the choice is
as he's saying, there's a few different ways you can do this part. Mainly it's just class selection. You can have him ask questions about your background, which determines what class you are, or you can create your own class where you can just pick a class. That's what I'm doing here. I'm just picking a class. And you can see the various major and minor skills that a mage has, which is what I'm playing.
very good. The letter that preceded you mentioned you were born under a certain sign. And what would that
Right,
be?
so you choose your birth sign here, and as I said, I'm playing a modified version of Morrowind. I'm playing with some mods installed, and one of the mods I have installed has generally buffed up the various birth signs. This sign I'm looking at right here, the Atronach, is actually, in the base game, one of the more powerful and abusable signs, birth signs, because it gives you the spell absorption trait, which basically means that there's a chance of you absorbing any spell that's cast on you, so it doesn't affect you, and not only are you not affected by it, but you absorb the magicka that spell uses, so it replenishes your magicka supply. On the flip side, however, you don't regenerate magicka with that sign. So if you want to be a spellcaster, that's a nice sign, because whenever an enemy spellcaster casts at you, you'll just replenish your own magicka, and there are ways you can get around the stunted magicka aspect. So this mod has kind of buffed all the other signs up to par with the Atronach. But I'm not going to pick the Atronach, and I'm going to... really my choices are kind of between the Apprentice, the Mage, and the Atronach. And I'm going to pick the Apprentice because it has a nice passive buff, but it also has a nice little active power that I can use once per day. And I figure having that active power will make the gameplay a little bit more dynamic than just picking the Mage, which just has a couple passive properties.
Now, before I stamp these papers, make sure this information is correct.
So yeah, papers please. You give you your papers after you look over your stats here. You might notice that the block skill there is a red 0. That's because another mod I have installed. You might see there reflective blocking prevention. That's mod prevents you from automatically blocking, which is the way the game's blocking mechanic normally works. You have to, unlike in Oblivion and Skyrim, you don't get to choose when you block. You just automatically block.
Show your papers to the captain when you exit.
But this mod makes it so you... here's my information here. But yeah, the mod I'm talking about makes it so you control the blocking, but you don't block automatically unless your skill is above a certain amount. But that probably won't be much of an issue for this character because I won't be using a shield because I'm a mage. So I'm going to be sticking pretty true to that. And again, it's a good thing I'm playing a modded version of Morrowind here because mages in the base game, purist mages anyway, are not very good. certain schools of magic are very powerful. Alteration is very useful, but destruction, if you're relying on destruction spells to get by, tempted here to steal that limewire platter, but I'm not going to. But yeah, in the base game, destruction spells are not very good. Excuse me. So here the tutorial is telling me to pick up this dagger, which is pinning a note to the table. If you read that note, which I'll do in a second here, you're going to see that dagger actually belongs to someone, and so the tutorial just has you right off the bat steal something. Although I'm not sure the dagger itself is actually flagged as being belonging to anyone, so it may not be technically stealing as far as the game mechanics go, but here's telling me how to pull out my weapon and attack. And in the base game, or even in the modified version, you have 3 different kinds of attacks you can perform. There's chop, slash, and thrust. And I've set the options here, I've set it so I always use the best attack, because each weapon has its own different damage properties for thrust, slash, and chop, and one of them is always going to be better than all the others, so there's really no point in using anything other than the best attack. So I've configured the game so it just uses the best attack. But again, it won't be much of an issue probably because I'll be playing a mage and primarily relying on spells, hopefully, to do most of my damage. And here I harvest some herbs from this plant over here. And the tutorial continues. Yeah, I will probably eventually be adding a mod that makes it so when you click these plants, instead of opening up a loot menu like you're seeing here, it will automatically harvest it and put it in my inventory, so it's not as so you have a somewhat more fluid experience. Although I think there might be some conflicts with some of the other mods I have installed, so I have to make sure that whatever herbalism mod I install plays nice with what I've already got. So yeah, here it's telling you how to use magic, and because I just found a random magic ring in this barrel. Normally barrels don't really have anything very valuable in them, but since this is a tutorial, they give you a little treat here. And again, I have a mod installed, so normally you have to go into a magic casting mode where your hands come up, which you're going to see here. Your hands come up like that, and then you have to do that in order to cast spells normally, but the mod I have installed lets you cast spells without being in that mode. Because the spell casting system in this game is a little bit clunky by default, and this just makes things a little bit more fluid and easier. So, I'm about to be released. This is the last guy I have to talk to before they officially let me go. So he takes my papers and he tells me, yeah, you're on Morrowind, and you can talk to people, you can explore the dialogue by clicking those blue keywords. So I'm going to click Morrowind here, and he tells me, yeah, you're on Morrowind, it's part of the Empire. And he says you have some duties here, and he's going to tell me what my duties are. Excuse me. In a second. I'll probably be reading some of this more important dialogue because the text is a bit small. Unfortunately, there's no real way to increase that text size without breaking other aspects of the game. Okay, so he says I have to go see this guy named Cassius in Balmora, and he tells me he doesn't know where he is, but he hangs out in this place called the South Wall Corner Club, and I could probably find him there. And so I'm supposed to give him this package, and it gives me some gold as well to go along with it. So, right, I'm just going to explore some of the other dialogue options. I ask him about Cassius Kosades, and he tells me, yeah, here's how you find him. And so by clicking these keywords, it unlocks other words, and he tells you how can you get to Balmora, where you can either walk there, or the device he gives you is to take a Silt Strider, which is, you'll see what a Silt Strider is later, but it's a kind of a form of fast travel in this game. Unlike Oblivion and Skyrim, which really heavily rely on fast travel, where you can just, once you reach a location, or sometimes even if you haven't been to a location before, you just click on the map and you automatically are kind of teleported there. And Morrowind, you really have to kind of think about how you want to get to where you go, and I'm probably going to be editing out a lot of the travel, but I'll be leaving some of it in because in Morrowind, getting around it really is part of the game, and finding your way around. And you don't have a compass with map markers telling you exactly where every quest objective is, so You have to kind of read your journal, listen to what people say, and use a little bit of common sense. Sometimes do some investigation to find out where you're supposed to go and, you know, how to achieve your objectives. So he's just giving me a little bit of background on the Empire, Uriel Septim, who's the Emperor, and some other general information. And I'm probably going to end the video here soon, but yeah, I'm just exhausting all my options. All this stuff will go into the journal, so later on if I want to see what I know about Silt Striders or, you know, my duties, I can go into the journal, and there's an index I can access, and also there's a quest system. So yeah, here it's telling me press J to open up my journal, and I'll do that and explore it a little bit. Also, you see some text here at the bottom, which is added by one of the mods I installed. Unfortunately, a lot of these mods add like a lot of items to your inventory and little spells to your spell list that have to do with configuring the mods, which I find irritating. I kind of would prefer if the mods had, like, in a README file, told you how to activate the configuration menus through the console, so you don't have all this stuff cluttering up your kind of gameplay menu. So I'm just gonna save my game here, and so it's probably I'm gonna end the video. So I'll see you guys in a bit.